A person was filming a volcano, far away on the horizon, beautiful and completely not scary, until the asphalt under his feet cracked and lava began to crawl out from there. Here, everything is filmed roughly like this, not by camera operators, but by people who ended up in the wrong place and managed to take out a phone. Some of this was later explained. Some of it hangs without an answer to this day, and, to be honest, the second is more interesting. Something very strange is happening all over the world. You are on the Top Facts channel. I wish everyone a pleasant viewing. The driver stopped on a dark country road just in time to film the birth of a tornado. The funnel stretched to the ground under heavy cloudiness, a powerful picture in itself. But it was not what made the shot. Right inside the thunderstorm system hung the moon, glowing a thick red. Meteorologists explain such things mundanely. Dust, smoke, and pressure drops during severe thunderstorms changed the color of passing light. The people sitting in the car explained it differently. They said it looked like an illustration for a very old story about the end of the world. Tourists were climbing a sunlit rocky slope and noticed something metallic in the clear sky. It did not look like an airplane, a wide figure in the shape of a chevron, an arrowhead. The object moved evenly and smoothly, not flying but rather gliding, without the turns and swaying characteristic of aviation. The operator had enough composure not to jerk the camera. The object crossed the entire ridge in the frame, and therefore the recording turned out long and clear, not a blurred spot for a second. Aviation enthusiasts argued about a stealth aircraft at an unusual angle. Not a single known mass-produced machine has such a shape. A street camera near a house filmed something hovering over the driveway, exactly where cars usually stand quietly. According to the family, the object did not move like the drones or airplanes familiar to them, and in its manner of movement, it did not resemble a drone at all. The video was posted online, and viewers began to analyze it frame by frame, trying to pull out the silhouette. The night and the cheap sensor left too much room for imagination. Everyone got their own shape. The eruption was going on far away, on the horizon, and it was filmed calmly, like a beautiful spectacle. Then a crack opened right under their feet, in the roadway, right where people with phones were standing. Red-hot lava began to squeeze out from the fault in the asphalt, and the crack itself continued to expand in real time, forcing everyone to step back. The intonations on the recording change in a couple of seconds, from relaxed comments to real panic. The video cuts off almost immediately after that. Where the lava eventually reached was not left on the footage. Right after midnight, residents of Melbourne saw a bright object in the sky falling apart into pieces. It separated into several glowing trails that stretched through the darkness for a few seconds. The first thought for many was about a meteor. Someone was frightened that it was an explosion or an earthquake. The flash turned out to be so sudden. Later, space agencies identified the object. Returning space debris was burning up in the atmosphere. The phenomenon is, in general, not rare, but when it catches you without warning in the middle of the night, its ordinariness somehow does not make it any easier. A video from Colombia went viral in hours. By a waterfall among the greenery stands a huge human hand, and it was mistaken for a plant. The comments were filled with versions about a rare mutation and an unknown ecosystem that no one had described so far. The truth turned out to be different, but no less curious. It is a sculpture by artist Ivan Vallejo, blended into the jungle so carefully that even people standing nearby in person did not immediately understand where the art ends and the forest begins. A man was walking along a forest trail and saw something, after which he immediately decided that he did not want to go any further. Right in front of him, a dark, absolutely black object appeared and disappeared, blinking in the air, as if it could not hold itself in this world completely. The shape did not resemble anything recognizable. Not an animal, not equipment, not a play of light between the trees. By the voice on the recording, it is audible how scared he was. He turned around and walked away. Whatever it was, the decision looked sound. Chichen Itza is one of the most famous structures of antiquity. The pyramid is more than 1,000 years old. It has 365 steps according to the number of days in a year, and twice a year on the equinox, the shadow on its edge forms into a descending serpent. And so, on a perfectly clear day, right at the foot, a powerful dust vortex swirls out of nowhere. Tourists rush to film. Someone shouted that Kukulkan is angry. The matter is in the place itself. The Maya considered Chichen Itza a point of transition between worlds. The vortex rose exactly where, according to their beliefs, this boundary passes. In the snowy silence of Greenland, a sound similar to a low trumpet rang out over a group of tourists, and everyone stopped at the same time. Locals call this the hum. Someone believes that it comes from above and serves as a warning. The hum was heard far beyond just here. Similar recordings came from dozens of countries, and part of them later turned out to be either a fake or the noise of machinery carried through the frozen air for kilometers. Here, there was neither one nor the other nearby, only ice, silence, and a sound that no one could identify. The person with the camera claimed that clouds do not behave this way, and looking at the footage, one does not want to argue with him. A formation gathered above him, the edges of which bent inward, forming not the usual pile of cumulus cloudiness, but something similar to an opening. Comparisons to gates and a portal appeared in the comments instantly. The author did not even bother to look for a meteorological explanation. He was already sure that he filmed something other than the weather. The feeling that something was wrong with this sky was shared with him by very many. The air stopped being air. It turned into a moving mass. Locusts covered the streets, roofs, and fields simultaneously, and residents ran out to film because there was practically no sky left overhead. The videos came from different districts. That is, it was not a single stray flock, but a full-fledged invasion that encompassed everything around in a short time. Locals said there was no warning whatsoever. The insects appeared almost instantly and left the crops bare in a matter of hours. Agricultural services pointed to a shift in weather conditions and unusually warm weather which helps larvae survive. The scale caught people by surprise anyway. A farmer woman went out in the morning on her usual business and immediately felt something was not right under her feet. The earth moved in waves and sprang like a huge sheet of jelly. The video shows how the surface bends and rocks with her every step, and she walks further on it because she does not understand what is happening. What is separately strange is that nothing like this had ever happened on this plot, even once in all the years. And after a few minutes, the field simply calmed down and became an ordinary field again. No seismic activity was recorded in the district that morning. A small vortex moved low across the open space. A person walked up to it and simply reached out his hand with a look as if catching tornadoes was a familiar thing for him. The vortex crumbled almost at the moment of touch. He remained standing as if nothing had happened, and everyone who was watching froze. No explanations were attached to the video, so everyone decides for themselves whether it is a trick, a coincidence, or the person simply knew that a small dust vortex holds on by an honest word and falls apart from any obstacle in its path. Footage in which people on the street simultaneously laugh and scream. Frogs are pouring from the sky onto a residential block. They fell on roofs, on the road, on parked cars, and residents ran out to film until it was all over. The phenomenon is called frog rain, and it has been recorded more than once in history. Strong updrafts lift small animals from ponds and swamps and drop them in a completely different place. In the Honduran town of Yoro, fish rain happens so regularly that an annual festival is held in its honor. What was confusing was something else. Exactly where that storm passed, none of those filming could say. A man stood motionless, knee-deep in water near the shore in Bermuda, and around him, fish moved in a dense ring, evenly, without breaks, circle after circle. Onlookers gathered on the shore, and someone asked out loud, "Is this normal behavior at all, or something like a ritual?" He himself did not explain anything. He did not move, did not drive them away, did not even turn around. Then they argued about bait, about smell, about a coincidence. Fish really do gather into dense, rotating balls. This is how small fry protect themselves from predators, twisting into one common circle. A person was walking along a trail along a wooded canyon, raised his head, and saw a glowing ring with a rainbow border in the sky, crossed out by one slanted line. It looks like a symbol, only it is unclear whose. The ring did not blur and was not blown away by the wind. It hung against the background of the mountain slope long enough to be calmly filmed on a phone. Some viewers compared it to old depictions of heavenly gates. Others insisted on ice crystals in the upper layers of the atmosphere, which produce rainbow halos. Neither of the options proved convincing for everyone. An earthquake in the north of Venezuela split the earth, a comprehensible picture in itself. People came closer to film the fault and stopped. A red glow began to ooze from the depth of the crack, even and thick, illuminating the darkness around. Someone asked out loud whether this was ordinary geology or something for which a simple answer could not be found. No one risked going down and looking. After some time, the light faded on its own. The crack remained a crack, and whatever was glowing at the bottom never showed itself. Inside a dense gray cloud, a light ignited and began to rotate, blinking in an even, repeating rhythm. The person with the camera did not take the lens off the same section of the sky for the entire video, clearly expecting that the source was about to break through to the outside or go out. Neither one nor the other happened. The light continued to pulsate at the previous pace. The comments divided almost evenly. Some talked about a distant thunderstorm reflected off moisture. Others clung specifically to the rhythm. It was far too calibrated for nature. The video ends and the beacon is still blinking. A man in North Texas came out of his house before an approaching thunderstorm and saw something that had not been seen here even once. The sky entirely, from horizon to horizon, became a deep, glowing pink. Not a stripe at sunset, not a reflection, a solid wall of color overhead. Meteorologists gave no clear answer, official services remained silent, and what confused people the most was not the color itself, but how peacefully all of this looked. For a phenomenon without an explanation, it was suspiciously calm. An ordinary evening in California ended with residents noticing a dark figure in the sky, frozen between the clouds. Everything around was moving as it should, but it stood motionless. Then the figure began to glow from the inside with a warm golden light, and the glow intensified, as if something was about to come out from there. The people on the recording say out loud that it looks like an opening door. Nothing came out. The light faded as smoothly as it flared up, and the figure dissolved in the clouds, leaving nothing behind itself. Drivers in the desert were not expecting anything interesting, but one thing by the road forced them to stop. On the shoulder stood a massive, dark construction, covered from top to bottom with twisted figures, skulls, and distorted human silhouettes carved deeply into the material. In the center, a glowing sphere, around which charred appendages resembling tentacles diverged. The person filming walked around it from all sides, repeating that it is not an edit and that it really stands here, by highway number 62. Who put it there and why, no one explained. There were also no people willing to find this out at night. No fire, no sunset, no dust storm, but the sky over Venezuela is flooded with thick red from edge to edge. The Al Jazeera film crew filmed people who were coming out of their homes and just stood, tilting their heads up. Someone decided that the forest was burning. Someone was waiting for a hurricane. Cautious versions sounded on the air. Dust in the air, light refraction. Not a single one explained the main thing, why the color was so even and why it lasted so long. The video went viral in a matter of hours, and in the comments, almost identical footage from other countries, filmed on roughly the same days, began to pop up. At first, it looked like a normal flock. A minute later, thousands of birds were sitting on roofs, on parked cars, right on the asphalt, and the city stopped. Drivers got out of their cabins and found birds on their hoods and windshields. They did not move from shouts, nor from honks, nor from waving hands. On the net, they instantly recalled biblical texts, where a flock that has flown together means changes. Ornithologists explained everything by disrupted migration routes due to a sharp change in weather, but admitted they did not expect such a scale, and the city had to clean up after the birds, which certainly had not prepared for such a guest. An explosion over open water is an unpleasant thing, but explainable. Its shape made it strange. The flames spread wide and almost symmetrically with two wings to the sides, and for a few seconds the figure of a huge bird that had spread its wings really hung over the night ocean. At that exact same moment, two trails resembling meteors streaked through the sky from top to bottom. The page that posted the video immediately called it a phoenix, and viewers picked up the comparison. No official explanation appeared from anyone. Neither the military, nor rescuers, nor meteorologists commented on this, so it remained a choice: debris, coincidence, or something else. There are no right angles in clouds. There is simply nothing to make them there. Yet above these people in the sky stood a distinct rectangular figure, and through its middle down went a thin blue beam, like a searchlight directed at the ground. The figure held its shape long enough. Several phones managed to film it at once, and the exact same even edges are visible on all the recordings. Then the clouds shifted and pulled it back in. No one standing below could name a natural phenomenon that gives even edges and a colored beam at the same time. An ordinary day, an ordinary sky, and suddenly a rainbow, bent not as it is supposed to be. The man filming it from the ground said that it looks more like an opening gap than weather. He held the camera steady, trying to catch the moment when the colors in the center seemed to pull toward each other and begin to swirl. This is actually visible on the recording. They began to argue about the cause later, unusual refraction and layered cloudiness, or something that is worth looking at more closely. But the funnel of color on the footage did not go anywhere. A single cloud hung low over a tiny patch of land and poured as if an invisible pipe stood there. A few steps away, dry asphalt and not a drop. One could stand at the very edge, stretch out a hand into the downpour and stay dry. The person with the camera walked back and forth several times, panning from the wall of water to the dry ground, clearly so that no one would suspect an edit. This is what an ordinary local convective cell looks like. A small rain cloud a couple of 100 meters wide which pours exactly under itself. Knowing the mechanics, however, does not cancel out how wild this looks in person. A man was walking through a field and noticed something resembling a tuft of hair in the grass, a multitude of thin strands scattered on the ground. He bent down, touched it, and the strands rose on their own. They stretched upward, tearing away from the grass, and where his fingers touched them, a thin wisp of smoke appeared. He pulled his hand back instantly. From the footage, it is visible that he did not expect such a thing. In the comments, they argued about static and dry grass and about spider webs scattered by the wind. The smoke did not fit into a single one of the versions, and it was this detail exactly that did not give peace to those who watched to the end. The sky over a quiet town became thick red, and across it horizontally, above the roofs, fiery stripes were drawn, as if the atmosphere itself caught fire. People went out onto the street, not understanding what was happening. And what was happening was a rare but completely real phenomenon. A sprite. This is an electrical discharge that strikes not down to the ground, but up at a height of tens of kilometers above a thundercloud. Scientists confirmed the nature of the flash and at the same time explained why almost no one had seen it before. A sprite lives for fractions of a second, and catching it on camera is a matter of pure luck. A driver slowed down by the shoulder because the slope of the hill in front of him was moving. Not a bush, not a single tree, the entire field completely, in slow waves, as if someone is running their palm under the grass. A strong wind was blowing across the hill. It bent the stems, changed direction, and with every gust the sunlight reflected off the grass in a new way. For a second or two, it looked like living earth. The solution is simple: wind and the angle of incidence of light. But those who watched the video already knowing the explanation still watched it to the end. The person with the camera could not decide what exactly he was filming. On the trunk, the bark was peeling off in places, and nearby it looked as if it was growing anew, changing texture right during the filming. Healing or shedding depended on from which side the camera approached. In the comments, they argued whether this is a normal cycle of bark renewal for the specific species, or something else is happening underneath it. Thousands of people watched from their balconies as a bright trail moved across the night sky over the glowing city. The first seconds, a regular meteor, nothing special, and then the light did what a stone cannot do. It slowed down, bent its trajectory upward, and went back to the stars, as if it changed its mind halfway. Those who were filming later wrote that their hearts literally skipped a beat inside when it became clear what they were seeing. Astronomers offered versions with a satellite fragment and an unusual angle of entry into the atmosphere. Not a single one of them explained the U-turn in the middle of the flight. A resident of the Eagles Bluff area came out of his house in the evening and managed to film a bright green trail that streaked across the sky and disappeared just as quickly as it appeared. He posted the video with a simple question: did anyone else see this, and what was it anyway? The comments were filled with guesses, from a meteor fragment to a test of a military signal flare that no one was warned about. Not a single agency confirmed the flash. The neighbors themselves spoke honestly. Everything happened too quickly to make out the shape or direction of movement. Over the Madeira River in the Brazilian Amazon, a helicopter pilot passed right under something that should not be there. High above the water hung a massive black ring, thick, even, perfectly round, like smoke that had frozen. According to the author of the publication, it held its shape for several minutes, whereas ordinary smoke or a cloud formation blurs and tears during this time. Some decided that they were burning something nearby in a controlled mode. Others stubbornly pointed to the symmetry. It is far too perfect. The pilot, by the way, did not fly any closer. A grainy recording from 1996 resurfaced again after on the 21st of June 2026, a new crop circle was found in an English field. In the old footage, glowing orbs glide low over the ears of grain, and the stalks beneath them lie down into that very same geometric pattern that farmers find decades later. Researchers of such formations noted that the orbs move too precisely for the wind or animals. Whether the two events, separated by 30 years, are connected to each other, no one confirmed, but the coincidence in the pattern convinced many that something is returning to these fields. High above a severe thunderstorm in Tibet, the sky for a moment filled with a thick crimson and went out. The flash lasted fractions of a second. This is a red sprite, a discharge that goes not into the ground but upward into the rarefied layers of the atmosphere, where ordinary lightning does not reach. The Tibetan Plateau is one of the best places on the planet for such a hunt. Dry, transparent air and altitude give a chance to catch what is usually covered from below by the thundercloud itself. Whoever blinked at the exact second saw nothing, and those who already had their camera standing on a tripod later could not talk about anything else for a long time. At 3 in the morning, the settlements around Cape Canaveral were sleeping. Then a flash struck over the launch complex, and the darkness for a few seconds became like day. According to reports, the test of the New Glenn rocket did not go according to plan, and the machine went into a fireball of such a scale that the glow was seen far beyond the borders of the spaceport. The people whom the light raised from bed decided that an explosion had occurred somewhere near their home. By morning, it became clear that it was a rocket, not the neighboring block. No one, however, went back to sleep after such a thing. Two friends were walking along a forest trail and stopped by an old tree. What from a distance looked like an ordinary bark pattern, up close turned out to be a face, with sunken holes instead of eyes, and a mouth frozen in an indefinite expression, as if it was not grown but petrified right in the trunk. They walked around the tree several times, specifically looking for an angle from which the resemblance would crumble. Such an angle was not found. The face held from all sides. Wind, rot, or someone's hand, they never decided. Viewers who watched the video did not feel any calmer either. A man was walking down the street and took out his phone because something was wrong with the sun's rays. Usually, light from behind the clouds spreads in an even fan, in straight lines from a break in the cloudiness. Here, the rays bent and went in arcs, and the person stood with his head raised in outright bewilderment, filming almost without stopping. Meteorologists later reduced everything to unusual atmospheric refraction, the bending of light in layers of air of different densities. The explanation sounds mundane. The footage looks much stranger than any ordinary play of light in the clouds. A man in China raised his camera to the sky because there were 3 suns there. Not a glare in the lens and not a reflection in the glass. 3 separate light sources hung side by side, close enough to each other that it seemed as if the sky was glitching. The argument began immediately. Some talked about halos and ice crystals in high cirrus clouds, which split the sunlight and give false suns. They are called parhelia. Others did not accept such an explanation. The footage held steady and long. This excluded a camera error, and it did not become easier for anyone from this. A group of researchers working in the Antarctic ice, according to their words, hacked out a block with something black inside. It did not look like a snag or a fragment. From the dark body, appendages extended outward, bending as only a living thing bends. Not a single scientific institute confirmed the find and named the species. No article, no sample, no name of the expedition leader, nothing. It is funny that Antarctic waters are already full of creatures in which it is hard to believe without this. A colossal squid with the largest eyes in the animal world, the size of a dinner plate, lives there, but it was at least brought on board and weighed. Here, all that there is a shape on a video. No fire, no thunderstorm, no sunset sun, and an entire city in Kenya in the middle of a white day became red. People went out onto familiar streets and did not recognize them. Houses, asphalt, cars, their own hands, everything was painted in one color. And in the comments of the locals, much more often sounded not surprise, but direct fright. By the time the video spread across the net, official explanations from the authorities still had not appeared. It started like a normal sunset. Warm colors on the clouds, nothing special. Then the light in the whole neighborhood went out all at once, and the sky fell into darkness of such depth that does not happen in twilight. The people filming this said that the transition took mere minutes instead of the usual slow fading. Soon, according to them, a message came from a government service, but what exactly was in it cannot be made out on the footage. The connection between the power outage and this message the viewers built themselves, and they built it, of course, for the worse. The sky in Florida changed in a second. Just now it was clear, and here the clouds covered everything so quickly that everyone decided as if a storm was coming. After that, normal weather ended. A massive blue beam struck from top to bottom, resting into the ground as if something was aiming at a target. And right next to it, thick, dark smoke stretched from the clouds, not up like smoke from a fire, but down, against all logic. No comments from the services followed. Hundreds of crows circle over abandoned buildings and public places, and they do this in complete silence. They do not fight, they do not chase each other away, they do not drag away prey, they just circle and look down. It was precisely this soundlessness and orderliness that caught the attention of those filming. It was far too uncharacteristic of a random gathering. Locals began to say that something is pulling the birds there, and connected what was happening with the general tension around. Crows, by the way, really know how to remember places where food regularly appears, and return there for years. The question is only what exactly they found there. In Switzerland, crowds took to the streets to look at what was happening between two huge towers. Right in the gap over the people, a giant symbol of an eye was glowing. A part of those gathered perceived this as a holiday and a sign from above. People rejoiced, filmed, pointed their fingers up. Another part, especially those who saw the footage later online, reacted exactly the opposite. They called the symbol unkind and advised to stay away from such a thing. One in the same image, one in the same evening, and two completely incompatible readings. A town not far from Nairobi woke up with a crack that cut the earth right through. No downpours the day before, no landslide, no construction work, nothing that usually precedes this. People gathered at the edge and tried to understand what happened. Specialists were called, but no clear answer sounded from them either. That same evening, a weak earthquake was felt in the country, which was reported in the news. East Africa in general stands on a fault that slowly, a few millimeters a year, pulls the continent apart to the sides. Sometimes this becomes noticeable not only to instruments. On one side of the road it is pouring, on the other it is dry and sunny, and between them, as if an invisible wall stands. This was filmed by a man in Dallas, state of Texas, and the explanation here is completely earthly. Rain clouds often turn out to be small and very local. They are not stretched across the entire sky, but gathered into compact cells. The wind drives the moisture into a narrow zone, and there it pours in earnest, and a couple of tens of meters to the side, not a drop falls. You understand the mechanics in a minute, and the feeling that the world was divided in half does not go anywhere. Over Chicago, they filmed something that they could never make out. In the air, thousands of small insects moving chaotically, as they should, and among them, one object that behaves differently, a perfect sphere, hovering motionless exactly in the center of the swarm. No jerks, no drift from the wind, no attempts to move to the side. Because of this contrast, versions started. Someone wrote that it is controlling the swarm, someone that it is hiding in it and filming what is happening below. The insects moved like living things, the sphere did not. A small Canadian town last year received a spectacle for which no one had prepared it. A spherical glow emerged from the clouds and slowly burned out into a perfect fiery ring hanging in the sky. It rotated and pulsated, and it looked least of all like weather. It did not last long. Then it disappeared all at once, leaving a completely normal sky. No smoke, no trail, no residual glow. It was exactly this cleanliness afterwards that confused the most. Natural phenomena usually have some kind of afterwards. Against the background of tension around the country, people in Iran, according to their words, saw several figures over the clouds, like horsemen on steeds, slowly walking across the sky. The footage went viral instantly. For some, this became a sign of support from above, an answer to what they had been asking for. Others peered into the same footage and saw a coincidence of shapes in the cloudiness, to which the human eye is prone by nature. We finish building familiar silhouettes where there are none. What is curious, both groups watched one and the same video and both were absolutely sure that they were right. Drivers in Austin reduced their speed. A military convoy was moving along the highway and trucks were carrying a massive ring structure covered with symbols that no one could identify. At first, it looked like the transportation of something ancient and inanimate. Then the inner part of the ring began to glow. A deep blue light swirled inside and flared brighter as the convoy moved along the highway. No explanations, no cordon, no requests to put away phones. The ring simply drove further, as if there was no one around it. People in Canada went outside at night and rested their gaze on the sky, which ceased to be a sky. A separate section of it filled with thick pink and purple, and the clouds slowly rotated around a dark center, as if they were being pulled in there. It looks little like a weather phenomenon. This was filmed from roofs in almost complete silence. On the recording, only the wind and someone's breathing can be heard. The person who posted the video captioned it with one line: "What is going on at all?" In all the time, an answer that would satisfy at least anyone never appeared under the post. In Western Australia, the sky all at once became thick red, and no one was ready for this. People came out of their homes on a normal day and the entire horizon looked as if time had ended. The video spread quickly and added only more confusion. There were no obvious signs of danger, but the feeling of wrongness did not let go. Later, the color was connected to Cyclone Narelle. Such systems lift into the air huge masses of red Australian dust which paints the sky. A part of the people did not accept this version and to this day consider what happened a warning. Residents of Antioch froze, having seen a huge floating hand over the clouds. It was filmed on several phones at once. The figure held in the sky for several minutes and then slowly melted away. Meteorologists spoke of an unusual cloud formation in combination with changing lighting. This did not convince the locals. The shape seemed far too precise, the fingers far too distinct. Many saw a sign from above in this. And it must be admitted, when the sky folds into such a figure and holds it for several minutes in a row, skepticism comes hard. Footage from Romania in which people cannot move from their spot. A huge burning circle opened in the sky, and those who stood below were seriously convinced that it would begin to expand and swallow everything around. It did not hang for long, then it slowly went out as if it had never been there, and the sky returned to its normal state. Locals still consider this a sign and say that the circle might appear again. A drone in the Nevada desert filmed the Earth, which split in a straight line for several kilometers. The strip of the fault goes evenly, as if by a ruler, and goes beyond the limits of the frame, a whole strip of desert cut in two. The first thing that comes to mind is an ordinary shift of the soil, but that is the strangeness. No noticeable fluctuations or tremors were recorded in the area. The Earth simply opened up on its own, quietly, without a single warning. Late at night, drivers near Orlando were driving through thick fog, and an enormous pirate ship appeared by the shoulder in front of them. Full-sized with masts, standing on the ground where no ship can be, people reduced their speed, trying to understand what they were seeing, and after a few seconds, it disappeared. A part of the viewers attributed everything to perception in the fog, where headlights and illumination distort silhouettes beyond recognition. Others remained of the opinion that the matter was not in the fog. Whatever it was, the fog took it away as quickly as it gave it. A person was filming the most ordinary weather until a figure began to form over the city. A face emerged in the clouds, with features so distinct that to write this off as a random pileup was hard. The scale was striking. It did not fit into the frame, stretching over a huge part of the sky above the residential blocks. It looked as if someone loomed over the city and was examining it from above. The human brain is arranged in such a way that it seeks out faces everywhere, in electrical outlets, in cracks on a wall, in the front grills of cars. This is called pareidolia and works for everyone without exception. Usually, the delusion crumbles as soon as you look closely. Here, it did not crumble. Over a Colombian town last year at night, a huge glowing cross lit up, and the crowd split exactly in half. One half experienced an uplift and perceived this as a blessing addressed precisely to them and precisely to this place. The second became truly frightened. These people were sure that they were seeing a warning about something approaching. They did not argue about whether the phenomenon was there. Everyone saw it. They argued about what it meant, and they have not agreed to this day. A man in Austin, state of Texas, did not sleep late at night and noticed that something was wrong with the sky. Through the clouds shimmered a light, resembling neither a thunderstorm nor summer lightning. It shifted and twisted, and the shapes changed without any logic. From the outside, it looked as if something was trying to push through. Ordinary summer lightning illuminates a cloud from the inside once, with a short flash, and goes out. Here, the light lived by its own rules. It stretched, flowed, changed outlines, and did not wish to end. Those who saw the video agreed on one feeling. It did not look like weather, rather like a warning. About what exactly, no one was able to specify. A rainy day in Dubai turned into flooding of the streets, unusual in itself for a city in the middle of a desert. Further, it got stranger. Next to the Burj Khalifa, fish began to fall from the sky, and they came from one single cloud. People looked up, not understanding how such a thing is possible at all. The mechanism of such rains is known. A waterspout over a body of water sucks in small fish and carries them to land, sometimes for tens of kilometers. Only to those who stood below, no one was reading the explanation at that moment. They simply watched as fish fell from the sky. An excavator operator in Brazil noticed that the soil under the machine behaved like a liquid. The ground went in waves, as if the earth was breathing. There is an explanation, and it is not particularly calming. Soil liquefaction, a state in which soil saturated with water temporarily loses its strength and begins to behave like a thick liquid. It is precisely because of this, during severe earthquakes, that buildings sink into the ground entirely, not even falling apart. Knowing physics does not cancel out the sensation from what is seen with your own eyes. The solids cease to be solid. Portals are customarily looked for in the sky. This one opened underfoot. A worker removed a block from the masonry, looked down, and there, in the depth, stood a red flame. Not smoldering trash, not sparking wiring, and even fire going somewhere down. Exactly the kind that is usually talked about in whispers. The people on the recording joke at first, and a second later, they are already demanding to put the block back in its place. Underground fire, by the way, is a completely earthly thing and a very stubborn one. In the American town of Centralia, a coal seam underground has been burning since the year 1962 and has not gone out to this day. The town had to be resettled because of this. What exactly was burning under this masonry, no one began to find out. The block was returned. A man in Texas every winter goes out with a torch and melts the ice on his driveway. This time the snow did not flow. It turned black under the flame and held its shape, and conversations immediately started online about artificial snow and about who is supposedly pouring it onto the cities. The solution is more boring and at the same time completely verifiable. Under a direct flame, snow does not have time to become water. It immediately transitions into steam. This is called sublimation, and the water simply goes into the air. And the black spots are ordinary soot from the torch itself. You can verify this in any yard where snow has fallen. A man in New York was walking down the street, glanced at the pigeons on the sidewalk, and one forced him to stop. He walked closer and realized that this is not a bird. A mechanical copy, made so that it would be taken for a living one, sat calmly among the real pigeons. Robotic birds really do exist. They are used both to study the behavior of flocks and to scare away birds at airfields. Only they usually do not sit on sidewalks. Someone assembled this one, brought it here, and left it exactly where people pass by every minute. A researcher in the Nevada desert stumbled upon a stone that was not lying but hanging slightly above the sand, without support, without a stand, without anything at all underneath it. And this is still not the strangest thing. Under the stone in the sand, a geometric pattern was pressed, circles inside circles, lines so even that they seemed machine-made. He reached out his hand, touched it, and everything disappeared all at once. After a few seconds, it appeared again, exactly as it was. After that, he stepped away, and he did the right thing. This story has no continuation to this day. A worker was getting ready to go home after his shift and noticed a moving object in the air inside the building. It constantly changed outlines and did not look solid, rather a clot of light, drifting on its own along the wall. What was most confusing was the manner of movement. Not by inertia, not by a draft, but as if with intent. He stood for a couple of seconds and exited through another way. No attempts to go closer, film closer up, or check what it is. Sometimes the best decision is simply not to find out. After a normal rain in Beijing, the street was impossible to recognize. All the cars turned out to be covered in worms, large ones. They stuck all over the windows, wrapped around the side mirrors, lay in a layer on the roofs, like that, as if they were poured from above out of a bucket. The person filming this says almost nothing. He simply pans the camera from car to car because each next one looks exactly the same. How hundreds of worms ended up precisely on the roofs, and not only on the asphalt, they could not explain in Beijing. Over Basel, the sky did something that the locals do not remember. In one specific section of the clouds, a light ignited, so dense and so local that it looked separated from the rest of the sky, as if cut out of another picture and pasted here. A part of the viewers called this a blessing, light that had broken through from somewhere outside. Others set about looking for a rational explanation and were left with nothing. The light held exactly within its borders and did not blur across the clouds, and this is exactly what you expect from ordinary illumination. An evening in Romania ended with a crowd running across an open field. The reason was in the sky. A huge glowing figure with widely spread arms appeared above them, from which light diverged in all directions. For everyone who was there, the resemblance to a famous image turned out to be obvious. People did not walk, they ran, trying to end up closer. No one present later agreed with the version that it seemed that way to them. Only those who did not stand there that evening argued. Revelation is the most controversial book of the Bible, and it is usually read as a schedule of the end. The events in the text go in an escalating manner. Seal after seal is removed, and with each one, the world shifts another step toward the irreversible. There are 7 seals in total. This is exactly why they return to the text every time the news becomes more alarming than usual. Extreme weather, disasters that come ever closer to each other. Someone sees a coincidence here and the effect of the fact that news simply began to arrive faster. Someone, a schedule that has already begun to be fulfilled. Towards the end of the 90s, the world was seriously preparing for the fact that at midnight on the 1st of January of the year 2000, banks, power grids, and communications would stop. The reason was technical and very simple. In many old systems, the year was stored with 2 digits, and a machine could read 00 as 1900. Governments and corporations threw into fixing the code, according to various estimates, hundreds of billions of dollars. Midnight came and nothing collapsed. Since then, they have been arguing. There was no threat at all, or it was removed precisely because for several years they sorted it out line by line. The answer depends on which of the engineers you believe. In a small Brazilian town, people raised their heads and saw a figure over a cloud, in which they recognized a familiar image. In itself, this has happened more than once. Clouds willingly fold into silhouettes. But then happened what you do not expect from a cloud. Right above the figure, a soft, glowing ring formed, which neatly stood exactly in the place of a halo. It did not move and did not blur. The people below stood silently and looked up. Whether you believe in signs or not, to call it simply a cloud after such a shot is hard. Back in the year 2020, residents of North Carolina noticed a perfectly straight glowing line in the sky. It went from a cloud upwards and held steady, without bends or scattering, so it was impossible to understand. The light is going from top to bottom or from bottom to top. The filming began almost immediately. The footage spread quickly. A part of the viewers was sure that the source is located inside the cloud itself. Others were called light pillars, vertical rays that appear when light reflects off millions of flat ice crystals hanging in the cold air. The truth is, pillars usually stand above a light source on the ground, and this one went from the cloud, thus remained a straight line in the sky without a clear explanation. At night in Florida, a man noticed a bright glowing object in the sky which moved evenly and left a trail behind it. It does not look like an airplane, nor like a meteor. A meteor does not move for so long and so evenly. Launches were not announced on that night in this area. He managed to film the object before it went into the clouds. Not a single service later came forward with an explanation. And for such a large and noticeable object over Florida, a region where the sky is monitored like in few other places, it was exactly this silence that turned out to be the strangest part of the story. In the evening in Saudi Arabia, people went out onto the street and stopped. There were two suns, one in the east, another in the west, on opposite sides of the sky simultaneously. The reactions on the recordings go from fright to a complete loss of speech, and to understand them is not difficult. A second sun in the frame cannot be explained right off the bat. Versions sounded different later, from reflections and optics to atmospheric effects. But at that moment, no one standing on the street knew anything at all. People simply turned their heads now to one side, now to the other. A man in Texas raised his head and saw that the sky is behaving not like a sky. Across it passed a sharp line, an even edge, as if a picture had been neatly cut. And through this cut something shimmered, not clouds, not sunlight, but something unfamiliar behind them. Other people stood nearby and also filmed, so it did not seem this way to one person. They argued later about one thing. Is this a glitch in the atmosphere, or still a view of what is usually located on the other side of the clouds? A group of specialists in Serbia stated a thing that one could laugh at. Fire can burn right on the snow, without fuel and without an external source. They verified this. They struck the snow cover and the flame burst out instantly, right from the white. The secret is in methane. The gas accumulates under the frozen surface, and when it finds a way out and meets a spark, it flares up. By the way, methane as a greenhouse gas is about 25 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. And there is much more of it under our feet than is customarily thought. In Peru, an object was caught on camera falling vertically downwards and pulling a trail of fire behind it. It moved evenly, not falling apart into pieces, as a large meteor usually does upon entering the atmosphere, and disappeared into a forest massif. No one went to check, or they did go, but not a single source reported on this. No debris, no crater, no official comment. Although in Peru there is exactly something to surprise with. In 2007, near the village of Caracas, a meteorite left behind a crater more than 10 meters wide, and this is one of the few cases when a fall was successfully tied to a specific point on the map. Here they did not tie anything, it simply fell and the sky became quiet again. In July of last year, people in several regions at once noticed that the objects around have no shadows. Completely. Not from pillars, not from people, not from cars, wherever you stood. There is no need to panic, however. The phenomenon has a name. In Hawaii, it is called Lahaina noon, and it happens twice a year in the tropics, when the sun at noon rises exactly overhead at an angle of exactly 90 degrees. The shadow at this moment hides right under the object. So if one day your shadow disappears, first look under your feet. In a cave in Peru, according to the words of those who found it, they discovered a book dated the year 1777. Inside, detailed drawn maps on which, it is claimed, step by step the transition from a flat Earth to a spherical one is shown. In a separate detail around which everything twisted. The Tartarian territories are designated on the maps. Tartary really did exist, but as a concept of European cartography. This is how on old maps they signed the gigantic space of Asia, about which in Europe they knew almost nothing. For some, this is proof of erased history. For others, an ordinary map of its time, on which it is honestly written, "Here we did not figure it out." In a rural area in China, a closed construction went on for a long time. Outsiders were not allowed in. What exactly they were doing there was not explained to anyone. And then the workers ran. In the footage, it is visible how people drop everything and leave the site simultaneously, without order, without belongings, not looking back. According to locals, they were going deep into the earth as far as possible, and at some depth stumbled upon something after which no one wanted to continue. What exactly they saw? Not a single one of them ever said. The site was left standing, and the question, hanging. Write in the comments everything you think about this and subscribe to the Top Facts channel, to the selection of the most incredible facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for watching, and right now watch the previous episodes that have appeared on your screen.